Welcome to the In Between podcast. I am excited to chat with Laura Ora, keynote speaker, coach, and host of the Gutsy podcast. She helps you cut through the mind junk, trust yourself, and finally go for what you actually want. No more waiting. It's time to make your next gutsy move. And that was the second time we've done this because we just recorded a good 4 to 5 minutes and Cassidy was dumb and forgot to press record.
Because hashtag human. So it's all good.
Yeah. So still make mistakes, but it's fine. And now we're here and at least we didn't make it 40 minutes into the conversation. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I just asked you. Does being gutsy ever become easier?
I love this question, and no one's ever asked me this before, so kudos to you.
Except for about 5 minutes ago.
Well, okay. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt here. Honestly, I think it's being a human, it's always going to feel a little or nerve-wracking or what if when you go to make a new decision or take a new risk or try something new or put yourself out there or be vulnerable, change something in your world. I think it's natural tendency to have some feelings that come along with that. But I'll tell you, I think it does get easier in a lot of ways because the more that you trust yourself, the more confidence you build within yourself. And the more you experience how great it can be when you follow through for yourself. And so I think that the more of those you have underneath you, the easier it gets to make those decisions moving forward because you have your own proof that hey, when I trust myself and I go for it, things work out in my favor, or I learned something that I needed, or the right person came into my world. So I think it's always going to be a little when you're making a change, but I think it totally gets easier because you trust yourself more.
I love what you said about the proof because I think that's so true. At least, so my other business, I own a social media management agency. And I remember when I first started out and every single time I landed a client, I could feel it getting easier to pitch myself to the next person. Because it was okay, well, I have 4 clients now. So I have 4 times the proof that I can do this, right? So I think that's so true. And you can't gain that proof unless you try.
Exactly. The first time of everything is always nerve-wracking. Because you don't have a lot underneath your belt. There isn't a lot of social proof. You're kind of out in the void. But then you do it and you figure it out and you try and there's trial and error and some things stick and some things don't and eventually something works. If you have that stay power, eventually something works. And like you said, you get one client, the second one is easier, the third one is easier, the fifth one is easier. And you're like, yeah, I can do this because I'm already doing it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what brought you to this mission? What made you decide to, one, encourage people to be gutsy, but I'm sure you had to go through a lot of gutsy things in your own life to get there too.
Listen, we don't have enough time today, Cassidy. Someone once told me that we teach what we most need to learn. And I'm like, well, damn, that's really true.
Unfortunate.
And I think about that a lot because to get to the place where I'm teaching people how to make gutsy moves, it's because I have had to make and chose to make many, many, many of gutsy moves in my world. So long story short, I've been a business owner for 17 years. I quit my first job, as a yellow page designer, by the way, for the phone book when I was 6.5 months pregnant to start my first business, which was a branding agency. So that was probably my first big gutsy move that involved my career. Prior to that, a gutsy move, I moved out when I was 17 and started college and paid for it on my own, so there's just always kind of been this reoccurring theme of I know what I want and I will figure out a way to get it, or I will find out, or I'll ask the right questions. So I started the business. I ran that agency for 16 years. I started speaking alongside it. And man, I tell you what, when I thought I would have that business until the day I died, honestly. And then something started to shift in me. My desire for branding started to decrease and my desire for coaching and teaching and speaking started to increase. And I found myself at another fork in the road and it's okay, what are you going to do? I've got one foot in, I've got one foot out, but I'm him hauling around nobody wants to hire me to speak. I'm like, oh, Laura, you're not fucking giving anybody the time of day or yourself the time of day to even be known as a speaker. So what are we going to do here? So another gutsy move, I sold the agency that I had built. I'd spent 20 years of my life building a reputation in that industry, and I sold it to pursue being a full-time keynote speaker and a coach. why I do this work is I know what it feels like to settle. I know what it feels like to deal with or just get by, feel mediocre, feel undazzled by your own life, like you just have to do things, that type of mentality. Those types of conversations where people are like, oh, it's Monday. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. And it's like, okay, well, are you willing to do something about it? If not, we can't continue this conversation, right? Like, I think a good vent session is always healthy, but at some point you got to be willing to say, okay, this is bothering me enough in my life that I need and want to do something about it. So I know what it's like to settle. I know what it's like to unintentionally abandon yourself. I know what it's like to be everything to everyone else and water yourself down, put yourself last, ignore your own needs and desires. I've done that so many freaking times that I could write a book about it. And I just don't have any tolerance for it anymore. I know what it feels like to make that gutsy move. It's scary. It's nerve-wracking. There's a lot of what ifs. Your brain is so incredibly creative when you try to change something in your life because it teaches you all the things that you don't really need. Talks you out of it before you even get started. But when you move through that, you embrace it, you go with it, you get really clear about what it is that you want, you shift all that mind junk that talks you out of it, and you take one next step towards it, you get to a place where you really want to be. And it might take a few times, and you might go on a few side quests along the way, but ultimately you're choosing yourself instead of choosing to settle. When you don't settle anymore, when you choose yourself, when you do the hard work, when you step into the unknown, you literally get to create whatever you want. It's so freaking phenomenal. Like, just a year and a half now past selling that agency, I feel like a completely different person. Like, I'm doing all the things that I always wanted to do and always cried about or wished about and wanted to do. It's like, it's actually happening, but it's because I was willing to make that gutsy move to get it done.
I want to go back to the part of the settling.
Yeah, I knew you were.
Because I'm interested in your knowledge and the people that you work with. Like, why do people get stuck in the settling for so long? Because I feel like you definitely have those people where, and I'm guilty of this, where it's an idea and I'm going to talk your ear off of it and then I'm never going to make the next step. Why
Absolutely.
do people get stuck there?
Well, a couple of reasons. First, other people. I don't want to let other people down. I don't want to rock the boat. What are other people going to say? What are they going to think? Their opinions matter more than my own. We are terrified of what other people say and think about us. And we make that more important than our own desires. So that's the first big one. The second one is, while you may be uncomfortable where you're at, there's comfort in the discomfort because it's familiar. So even if you're not in a place that you want to be, you know how to navigate it. You know how to dodge, you know how to pivot, you know how to talk about it, you know how to complain about it, you own that space because you've been in it for a long time. Yep. So it's very stretchy, right, to get out of that comfort zone, even though that's not the thing that you want anymore, right? And then I would say the last thing, why people unintentionally choose. I mean, nobody wakes up and is like, you know what I'm going to do today? Settle for less. Like, it's not a conscious, like, we're not dancing to the beat of the drum here with that. But I would say that the third thing that I see that why people settle, they just don't believe in themselves. I mean, chances are someone else's thought or belief or habit has been implanted in themselves, or they've inherited something, or they're in an atmosphere that's not supportive. A lot of times people are alone in a journey, right? And they just don't believe in themselves. They don't trust themselves. And so they talk themselves out of it before they even get started, even though, I mean, these are incredible people. You've done so many things in your life where you've overcome obstacles, you've tried new things, but we just completely discount all that when it comes to a place of like, hey, I don't like this anymore. This doesn't serve me anymore. And I see this in relationships, business, careers, health, right? Like, those are the big ones where we're just like, ugh, it's easier to just not. But oh my gosh, in the back of your mind, it just eats you away every single day.
Do you feel like this settling has become almost a societal trend or norm?
I think it unintentionally has. There are no billboards around that tell you to settle, but I think that people get caught in responsibilities. I think that there's a lot more on women today than ever before. I think that, there's just more expected of people. And so it's easy to say, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the energy. And so I think the societal pressure has come from a lot of different angles that's made you believe that you can't, where you absolutely can.
Yeah.
It may not be a straight line. It rarely is, let's be honest. And it may not be quote unquote easy, but it's totally doable.
Do you think there's a conversation in that about ownership when it comes to settling and owning like the things that you're believing or owning that, hey, I care about what people think of me, and so I haven't taken action on this, and it's something I have to work through?
Yeah, I mean, that's what, the quote unquote, the work that you hear people talk about it. I mean, you either face it or you don't. Mm-hmm. You got to get really real with yourself, uncovering it. I'm a huge fan of taking care of your mental health through therapy or other modalities that work for you, right? Having a coach by your side, a right mentor, someone to help you kind of unpack the stuff, because a lot of people are just running on autopilot. They don't even realize what they're doing. So how can you change something that you don't realize? And that settling part often comes in like this reoccurring pressure or this reoccurring dissatisfaction in your life. And if that is like, I say reoccurring because sometimes like there are things I don't want to do, right? Like there are days when I'm just like, no, this is not the day. Reoccurring meaning like this is consistent in your life. There's something pulling you, tugging you, draining your energy, right? Like making you feel bad about yourself. If this is a reoccurring theme in your life, it's an invitation to go deeper, to explore it. And so, yeah, self-ownership is huge, and self-awareness, right? We just got to notice, like, how is your body feeling? Your body is a compass, and it is always guiding you, and it is always, always communicating with you. So if you're feeling pressure, if you're consistently sick, if there's a lot going on in your mind, like there's this weird ache and pain that you have that, all the doctors are saying everything's fine. Like we can't ignore ourselves anymore. And so you got to be willing to look in the mirror instead of running away from it.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, that's the hardest part. And then the work comes and you're like, oh, wait, maybe it wasn't the hardest part. So you help people transition and choose that gutsy side versus sitting in the settling for, people sit there for their whole lifetime, and that terrifies me personally, but that's why we're having this conversation, right?
Exactly. It's the number one thing that like, if something kept me up at night about people, it would be that, is knowing that people are just getting by, that are just doing
and people
the thing.
That have the potential to create things that the world needs.
Absolutely. I mean, look at all of the inventions, anything that we use and do and have today is because somebody made a gutsy move, because somebody betted on themselves. Like literally the riverside that we're on right now, that was an idea that somebody had one day. The phones that we pull out of our pocket, that was an invention because somebody was like, hey, I think this could be interesting. Like literally everything that we do and use every single day is because somebody said yes about themselves. And I just find that so incredibly liberating and exciting, because like, I'm not saying you have to invent the next rocket ship that goes to outer space, but what you have is important. And you being you and lighting up the way that you're intended to impacts the world in an incredible way. And people just discount themselves and think like, oh, I'm not that special, I'm not that important. Yeah, you are.
So what are the steps that you take people on when they first come to you and they have something that's scary that they're excited about, but they haven't taken action on?
Yeah. So I'm really good about helping people get to the root of what's driving this in the first place fairly quickly. So I'm intuitive. So part of my modality and part of the way that I teach and speak is using my intuitive abilities and just asking the right questions to help you get to know yourself, right? Like a lot of times when people are stepping into the space, people are like, I have no idea what I want. Nobody's ever asked me that before. I haven't sat and thought about it. And the truth is they really do know what they want. They're just afraid to admit it. Or it might look a little different than what their mind is trying to make it look and believe. So, I mean, I often ask them, what do you actually want? And then we sit and I watch them go through 40 different emotions in about 30 seconds. And we explore what that is, right? So, if you're listening and you're like, where do I even start? What do you want? What do you actually want? And a little exercise I like to do, if I may, is if we just close our eyes for a second, okay? If you're listening, close your eyes. If it's safe, don't do that while you're driving. But I want you to just kind of step into the space with me. We're going to play in the space of what if, okay? If you're not sure what it is that you want, let's just look at all of your current roles and responsibilities, okay? All of your family members, your job, your clients, your friends, the people that are relying on you, okay? Let's look at everything, your to-do list, your emails, all the red dots. Let's just kind of lump all that stuff together for a second. And we're going to just very lovingly and gently move everything and everyone over to the side. We're not getting rid of anything. We're not removing anybody. We're just moving where you're focusing your energy. Now, in this space now in front of you, it's open. It's clear. Nothing is expected of you. You have in this space everything figured out. You have all the answers. You have all the resources. And your decision affects no one. In this space right now, what would you do next? What do you want? Just sit with that for a second. Trust whatever came up. Trust whatever came up. Now you can start to open up your eyes and realize that this is your next move. This is where your energy is pulling you. It's not that you don't know what you want. It's that everything else has clouded it. It's gotten in the way. Now you don't have to have it all figured out to be able to move forward. But now we have some clarity. We have direction. And when we have direction, you can start to move that way. Little tiny micro steps. What's one next thing that we can do to start to make that real? That's where we start getting very clear about what it is that you want and then breaking it down to a very simple plan of what is the one next thing that I can do next. Works like a charm.
I love that. I loved that visual. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's interesting too that when you take yourself on a journey like that, sometimes you can get answers that you didn't even expect. And I think that's happened a lot of times in my life of, okay, I guess I'll try to do that thing. I didn't think that's what I wanted to do, but here I am and I'm going to try to do it. And I think it's also interesting as you were speaking, and I was just thinking about my business when I first started my business. I still, 4 years later, am taking micro steps. There's no big leaps. Like I think about it in micro steps because, and I'm so much farther than I was before, right? But it's still those micro steps every single day. It's not, it did never switch to like, let me take this massive leap. Now it looks like that, but it's still the small moments.
Well, secret, 17 years later, and I'm still taking micro steps.
Good to hear.
Okay. Like that. I think that's the way to go. That's what creates something that's sustainable and real. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've made some big steps, right? Selling an agency is not a small step. Yeah. Leaving an entire industry, not a small step. Mm-hmm. But even that decision to do that, to make that big step, it was literally a series of small steps. So it looks like a big ass thing, and it was, but the big ass thing only happened because of the small, tiny things. Mm-hmm. So we often want to have it all figured out. We want to have a crystal clear plan. We want to know all the ins and the outs of it, and we want to control it. Okay. That shit's stopping you. Okay. So if we just break it down and realize that like I don't have to have it all figured out, I just need to know what I want, or at least the direction I want to go in, and then what's one thing that I can do towards that, that's how you'll find all the answers.
Yeah. I think it's curiosity too. Just get curious.
Yeah.
If you visualized something a couple of minutes ago when we did that exercise and it's not what you thought or what you looked at, like get curious, ask questions, reach out to people who maybe have done it, whatever that thing is. And maybe that's the micro step, right? Is just getting curious and putting in some education that gets you more excited for what you're about to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. We make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And then that's when the brain gets involved, and now you've got a whole shit show that's going on. And
yes, that's
when you're like, nope, I can't do this. And it's like,
well, and I think it's important to be like, you don't have to believe every thought that you think. Like,
yeah.
A large portion of mine personally are lies. So like that, I think, like you said, it is the self-awareness part of it all. Of like, okay, is this thought accurate? Is this person actually looking at me? Like all of these different things of trying to essentially silence your own voice from talking you out of what you're about to do.
Exactly. And that voice, it's rarely yours.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I was going to ask you to go next, is talking about the other people's opinions and that aspect of things. Because I think we have a lot of conversations about it, but we don't really talk about like what can we actually do about that, because I mean those voices can be loud, from family members to a random girl in your same field on the internet that you just think is the next greatest thing and you can't compete. So how do you deal with those? How do you break them down? How do you navigate the lies that your brain is telling you about those people?
You know, it's often made up, right? Sometimes it's real. Yeah. Sometimes somebody will say something, or listen, I get some comments on my TikTok videos. Gosh, man, do I get some comments. But I put myself out there.
Yeah.
And it's part of that, right? You know, I understand and accept that it's part of it. And I have to remind myself, and I remind my clients too, is that, you know, if someone is saying something incredibly negative to you, it's absolutely a reflection of what's happening on the inside of them in their world. Mm-hmm. And so separating the thoughts and the words versus absorbing them is really important. Like nobody can make you feel a certain way unless you have accepted it. And so I sometimes challenge that back and say, like, what part of what they're saying or doing right now do you believe to be true? And why is that rocking your world? And that's enough sometimes to make people be like, right? Like that's the kind of nitty gritty shit that I like to get into, because that's another route. We're getting down into things. So one, understanding and accepting that if people are projecting things onto you, they're fear at you, I don't like what you're doing, you know, all that stuff, it's a reflection of them. It has nothing to do with you, literally. And sometimes you just have to just stop and remind yourself of that, because that stuff's not going to end. And if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't move forward, if you don't go after the things that you want, ultimately their fears of themselves are winning in your world. Mm. The other thing is getting really connected with why you're doing whatever you're doing in the first place. Why does this matter? Right? Like when I was making the change of selling my business, there was a lot of like, well, what if people think that I'm losing my mind, or she's irresponsible because like she's put so much time into this. And at the same time, I didn't mention we owned a commercial building. I decided to sell that too. I was like, I don't fucking want any of this stuff. Like all of it's just distracting me from what I actually came here to do. And I'm like, we had these renderings, we had an architect in place. We had a contractor lined up, the whole night. Like it was ready to roll. And in the 11.5 hour, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to sell it. And the community already knew about it. The plans were out there, right? And all I kept thinking was like, am I going to let these people down? They knew the plan. I look flaky now. And it was like, why am I choosing to do this? Because I don't want to do this anymore, because it doesn't light me up. All of those people are not going to help me run this business. All of those people are not going to help me finance this. Why do I want to let it go? Because I know what I want to do. So when you start getting clouded with the noise from other people, clock back into why are you doing this in the first place? And that's often enough to just relight your fire a little bit higher to make you say, you know what, it's going to be okay. They can have their opinions, but I don't need to absorb them as my own.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said that, because it's so true that if you're able to lock back into your why and what you do, it almost centers you a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, most of the goals and the things that we're talking about are long term, right? Like, it's not happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so to really have that center where every couple weeks, every couple months, like, you check in and you're like, hey, are we still doing this for the original why? And do I still align with it?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I think that another big piece of this, and I would love to hear your perspective, is discipline when it comes to then deciding you're going to be gutsy. Anything that I've done that's gutsy, I really had no knowledge of. I had to learn. I had to put in the work. And I mean, just like when you discuss nutrition or going to the gym, like all of those things, you have to choose to put the work in and be disciplined. And I would love to hear your perspective on that in between of like, okay, I've decided I'm going to go for this, but now I have to go for it. How does that look? And how do you navigate, especially for the people that you work with, like showing up? Because sometimes you can show up for a couple weeks and then be like, I think I'll chase it next month. I'll try again.
Yeah. Well, totally normal. Mm-hmm. We've all been there and done that. Especially I can personally attest in a fitness journey, right? Like you sign up, you're gung-ho, think about New Year's resolution kind of mentality, right? It's not sustainable when you have that like firework moment and you're not really locked into it, or you're really trying to do everything on your own. So I think a big piece is community. Whether it's a single buddy system or a Facebook group that you're in or a group that you're in, like I run the Gutsy Collective for this very reason. People just want to be around other people in the same energy because it helps them to keep going. It helps you to stay focused. It helps keep you accountable, right? Like that's why having a kind of a buddy system or people in place, it really works, because when your energy is down, someone else's is up. Yeah. And they influence you. And when someone else is down and you're up, you influence them. So it really helps you to keep moving forward. I think the other thing though too is, okay, I have this analogy I like to call the hallway.
I love it. Let's hear it.
It's this space. It's the in-between space, right? Very fitting for this show.
Yes.
You have made the decision. You've walked through that initial door, right? You've made that first step. You've made the decision. Whatever it is has happened. But you're not yet through the other door, right? Meaning you haven't arrived or you haven't achieved it yet, or it's not yet fully happened the way that you want it to. You're in this in-between space called the hallway. And you have no idea how long the hallway is. We don't know how many twists and turns there are. Sometimes the lights are on, sometimes they go out, right? Sometimes there are side doors and we go in on a side quest that took us, kind of off the beaten path, and we went in and maybe we learned a lesson the hard way and we came back into the hallway. We walk a little further, we go through another door and we meet somebody, right? A guide or somebody that taught us something that we needed to know. We gathered information and we come back into the hallway, right? Like we have to look at this as a big picture, and knowing that anything great takes time, consistency, and being really dedicated, and knowing, releasing the expectation that I have to know how long it's going to take in order for me to want it and to continue going for it. So you're in this weird space where you don't want to go back because that wasn't cool, right? You already did enough work to not want to go back, but you're not where you want to be yet. This is where community comes into play, right? The support system along the way. This is where working with your energy comes into play, right? Getting grounded every day, getting focused, vision boards, things that help you stay connected to what you're doing, connecting with your why. Why am I doing this, right? Spending intentional time. You can do things like time blocking if that's helpful for you, or putting it in a calendar, right? Like you got to find the methods that work for you. I think sometimes where we get kind of tripped up is we try to mimic what is successful for somebody else, and then it doesn't work for us, and then we get discouraged, and then we just like sit in the hallway, right, and pout a little bit, which it's fine. I've pouted in some hallways for sure. It's so important to be so clear about what it is that you want. That's why I start with this, because when you know what you want and you know why it matters to you, you will always find a way. And accepting that I am on a journey and it's that important to me that I'm going to stick with it and continuing to walk that path. And you might be walking one day, you might be skipping another day, you might be crawling another day, but eventually, if you continue, you will get to that door. You will get out of the hallway and you'll be into your next phase of life. Yeah. So there's no magic pill. There's no like foolproof way of like staying motivated. You know, you have to be your own best advocate and surround yourself with the people that are going to help keep you going too.
Yeah. I love that analogy of the hallway. It's totally like the in-between. But I think for what you do specifically, like it really is such an incredible visual for this phase that you're in where you're like, I'm not there yet. I've made the big leap, so that should be celebrated. But like also this part is hard and great at the same time. And I'm almost there. So I love that. What is one belief personally for yourself that you had to unlearn? Let's talk. I mean, there's so many gutsy moments of your life, but specifically with your business and the selling, what was a belief that you had to unlearn in order to, I mean, even enter the hallway?
I had to unlearn the belief that I had to continue doing everything. That I had to keep everything, that I had to keep like performing at this like incredibly high level, right? You know, at the height of things meaning like when I was about to crack, when I did crack, I was running 3 businesses. No. That works for some people. I got in this like, you know, I have to be everything to everybody. I have to prove myself. I have to hustle. I have to work hard to earn the money that I want. You know, I have to have 7 income streams, you know, like all this like bro marketing kind of shit. Again, if that works for you, do that. It didn't work for me. But I made it mean something about me instead. I made it mean that like, oh, I'm failing and I'm messing up and all this stuff. And it's like, this is not my lifestyle. I got to know myself a lot more through astrology, through human design. I'm not sure if you're familiar with human design. I'm a projector. Girl, I'm not supposed to hustle. It's so against my makeup that like me, I need to like come all in, drop some magic, and I need to get out.
Yeah.
That's where I thrive. That's what I do now. But before, I was making myself hustle and grind and work the long hours and do all this stuff. And I had to unlearn doing all the shit and settling into, resting into ease and flow and allowing and receiving.
Every woman right now is listening to this like, must be nice.
Yes.
Because that, I mean, you're probably talking to all of us. Now, granted, like you said, there are some people, but I would say women specifically, like we are all in that space of like, okay, do more. Why aren't you doing more? You haven't been doing more lately.
Yeah. Well, you know, it must be nice, but it is nice when you choose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the hard conversation.
Yep.
There's very few things that you're doing right now that you are forced to continue. So if you are doing and grinding and hustling and forcing and burning your candle at both ends and, you know, feeling like shit at the end of the day and waking up being like, how am I going to do this again today? Girl, you've got a decision to make. What are you avoiding right now? There is a decision that you're avoiding. The thing that you want the most is often behind the thing that you resist the most. So what are you resisting? Yeah. Right? I don't know. I feel real strong right now. Somebody needs to hear that because there's something that you're resisting. I made a TikTok video the other day that I was talking about like kind of what I was doing through the day, and, you know, that I had a massage in the afternoon, and I rearranged my schedule for the gym and stuff like that. And I was like, I want you to also know right now, before you come at me in the comments, I made the hard decisions and did the work so that I could have this type of freedom in my life. Okay. And I'm in a different phase of life now. My son is 17, right? Like, I don't have small kids in my home anymore. I've got more openness and flexibility. So we have to take in a lot of considerations, but we always have to check back with, like, what are you resisting? What's, even if it's not changing your entire world, what's one thing that you can do to start undoing being everything to everybody? Where are you saying yes when you really want to say no? What's an extra commitment that you took on that you need to release?
Yep.
Right? Like, you don't have to be super mom at the bake sale. You don't have to be in every freaking club if you're in business. You know what I mean? Like, where are you draining your energy? What's the thing that feels like, you know, what's one thing that you can start to let go of? That's the kind of small moves that I want you to get in the habit of doing, because that's when you start to reclaim yourself. And then you can have the things that you want. I'm not saying you need to mimic the way that I live. I don't teach anybody how to live the way I live. I teach you how to get out of your own way so that you can live the way that you want to live.
It's back to self-awareness, because I think, to what you were saying, like, a lot of people don't even realize they're yes people, or that they're going to take all the extra things to prove what?
Yeah. To prove that they're good enough, to receive love, to be accepted in groups. I mean, it's deep stuff. Yeah. It's very deep stuff. It's super, super ingrained in our life. And especially if it's been with you since childhood. I mean, it doesn't change overnight, but it can change.
Well, and I think there's been past conversations on this podcast specifically talking both what we've discussed here of, like, childhood, other people's influences on our life, and then taking it generationally and looking at certain patterns that maybe your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother have lived through. And, like, in my case, I'm disrupting a lot of it. I'm a different pattern than the past 3-4 generations before me. There's going to be a lot of resistance to that, because even though that's where I want to go, my lineage is like, oh, well, we're over here. Like, you're supposed to do it this way. And I think a lot of times, like you've mentioned, having those conversations, and, like, did I even know generationally that that was a thing? No. But I had coaches and mentors in my life that were like, hey, let's have this conversation. Like, let's look at the patterns of your past and your lineage. Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense when you say it that way, right? Like, everyone's been married, have kids, and I'm, like, out here running a business almost 30. So, like, for me, I want to do that, but there is still that tension based off of how the people before me have done it. And so Absolutely. I think the conversations are huge, because there's so many things that we don't even know, like you mentioned, human design, and, like, all these different aspects of learning about yourself and learning how you got to where you are that you're not even aware of, that can help you ground more into whatever that next step is.
Exactly. It goes back to what you were saying earlier, getting curious. Get curious about yourself. You know, we can be curious about the world, absolutely, but get curious about yourself.
Yep. And that's hard. I remember when I started getting curious about myself, I was like, no, I'll just learn about everybody else. No worries. Like, to really ask, you know, like, those big questions, and ask why you're doing certain things. Because, I mean, when you hear you're doing it for someone else, that's a hard pill to swallow. When you think and you've convinced yourself, oh no, I'm doing it for Cassidy, and then you realize it's not, you're like, oh man.
Yeah. Well, then that whole voice comes in and is like, oh, I can't do something for myself. Now I'm selfish. Now I'm indulging. Now I'm this. Now I'm that. And it's like, you asked earlier why people settle. There's another one. There's another one. Yeah. You know, I think being selfish has gotten a bad rap. And I don't even know that selfish is the right word or term. But, like, and self-loving feels a little, like, whooshy to me.
Yeah.
You just got to get to know yourself and be willing to be you. I mean, that if we just boil all the fluff down to it, get curious about yourself, get radically aware of who you are, how you're designed, what your makeup is, what your purpose is, right? Go on that adventure and then be willing to be that. Like, being yourself is not actually what's hard. What's hard is being what everything and everyone else expects you to be. Putting on that play, putting on the persona, changing character outfits depending on the room that you're in. That's the shit that's hard.
Mm-hmm. And it's happening every single day.
It's consistently peeling back layers. I actually just experienced a little bit of this myself. I'm not void of this stuff, guys. Like, we teach what we most need to learn. I just spoke at an event in New York City this past weekend, and it was my first time speaking in the city. I mean, I've been there visiting a million times, but this was my first time like working there. And I gotta tell you, like, I got real wound up. I'm like, New York City, I have to like dress a certain way, right? There's a caliber of people there. There's like an expectation. And I was like, whoa, Laura. Okay. It's the same pattern in a different setting. So what do I really want? Be myself. I don't need to be something else because I'm in a different room or a different city. They hired me because I'm me. So let me show up in that room as me. And so I had to do some work and shake it out and get reconnected. But again, I noticed my body, that self-awareness. I noticed the tension in my chest. I noticed my brain starting to like say all these nasty things about myself. That's the invitation to pause right there. Is when your body starts communicating and your mind starts racing, that's your invitation to pause. That's your entry point for curiosity. Oh, what is this trying to tell me? What do I need to know here? What do I actually want? Right? You're checking back in with yourself, and then you're choosing to move forward with that instead of going away from it.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of you for noticing that, because I don't think whether you're the student or the coach, it gets any easier, but to be able to step back and acknowledge those things and truly choose differently is powerful. I hope the speech went incredible, by the way.
It was phenomenal.
You killed it, I'm sure.
So thank you. Such great feedback, such a great group of people. You know, it was a great time, and I achieved a bucket list item all at the same time. So it was great. And
it's interesting to, like, obviously if we play around and think about things like how different it would have been if you had showed up as that kind of New York City avatar that you were envisioning.
Exactly. New York City didn't need a polished version of Laura Ora.
Yeah.
They needed Laura Ora, period. So once I shook that off, and that's why, coming back to the very first question you asked me, does it ever get easier? That's why I said, I think it does get a little bit easier, because now I'm familiar with my body and what it's saying. I'm familiar with that resistance and the hesitation, and I'm able to catch it very quickly. I'm not always perfect at it, but I can catch it. And that means I can change it in the moment. So instead of stepping into that space as some kind of polished something that I'm not, I was able to catch it and shift it and enter the space as who I am. And that's where the success and the fulfillment comes from.
Yeah. What's your hope for the woman that's standing right before choosing not to settle?
My hope for you, my dear sweet friend, is that you choose you this time. My hope for you is that you lean in instead of pull away. That you trust in whatever it is that you're thinking and feeling, that you give yourself the opportunity to take one step, even if it's just a little tiny micro shimmy, that this time you go for it instead of retreating back to what you know.
Thank you. And I always love to finish out the conversation asking some advice that you would give someone in the in-between, but I'm going to switch it because you have a better analogy that fits this. What advice are you going to give someone in the hallway?
My friend in the hallway, you feel like you're in a hallway of your own, but really you're in a hallway next to thousands, if not millions of other hallways. So first, you're not by yourself, even if it feels like you are. And second, everything that you want is on the other side of your willingness to stick through it. And so I don't care if it takes you a day, a week, a month, a year. Keep moving. Even if it's the micro step, even if you're dragging your fucking feet behind you, even if you're going on one of those side quests and you think that you've messed up or screwed up. You haven't. You gathered everything that you needed in that time and space. So just know that it's working because you're doing it, even if it doesn't look like it on the outside.
Thank you. I feel like I have to close out with advice for the Gutsy people that are already on the other side, because it's not going to be the last Gutsy thing they do. So they just entered the door of Gutsy. They made it to whatever their point is. What's your advice for them?
Well, you did what most people run away from. And I don't want to tell you anything other than I'm fucking proud of you.
Oh,
because
yeah.
most people run. Most people hide. And maybe you have in the past. That's okay. This time you chose you. And so I want to applaud you and I want to celebrate you. And I want to give you a big ass high five because there's some really cool stuff waiting for you on the other side.
Amen. Well, this has been incredible. I would love for you to share with my audience, one, your community, because I'm sure there's a ton of people in the hallway that are like, how do I get these people in my hallway? And then two, just where they can connect with you if they're interested about maybe having a call in working with you, where they could find you for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many amazing women inside the Gutsy Collective who are also in the hallway just like you. So they're in many stages of figuring it out. They're relearning how to trust themselves, reprioritize themselves, take action for themselves. And so if you feel like you're in that hallway and you feel like you're alone and you could really use some really great women in your corner that truly support you, none of that fake BS, the Gutsy Collective will light up your world in a whole new way. So lauraora.com and just click on the Gutsy Collective. I'd absolutely love to welcome you into the space. And then social wise, I play the most on TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My handle is @thatlauraora. And if you just click on the link in my bio, that'll take you to the place where you can book calls and learn about ways to work with me.
Perfect. And your podcast is all over the place. Everywhere.
Yeah. We can't forget about
right?
that juicy beautifulness.
I was going to say, if you love this conversation, you got to continue it over at the Gutsy Pod.
The Gutsy podcast is on all the major platforms. If you like this kind of lovingly blunt, swift kick in the ass, the Gutsy podcast will be right up your alley.
Awesome. Well, Laura Ora, I am so grateful for you to join me in this incredible, inspiring conversation. I hope that my audience gained so much out of it. And I think that, it's an evolving conversation. Like some people, maybe they just got that kick in the ass they needed to take the step. Some people are in the hallway, they got the encouragement, and some people were celebrated. So no matter where you are, we're on the journey with you. We're excited for you. We hope that you follow Laura and her adventures and join her community. Don't forget to follow @InBetweenConvos on Instagram, and we'll catch you next time.